All right, guys, Crystal and I are currently on the road, and we wanted to talk about what went on with Kanye West and now Elon Musk. So to catch everybody up, I'm sure you've seen this by now, but Kanye went on Alex Jones' show, and he basically went full Nazi. He said, I love the Nazis, I love Hitler. There was not really an attempt to
there was no plausible deniability. Alex would try to give him an out, like, oh, like, you like their uniforms, right? That's what you mean? He's like, no,
I love Hitler.
I love Hitler. I am a Nazi. I love Nazis. There was just no deniability there.
So after that, much to my shock and probably a lot of people's shock, Elon Musk said, okay, no, you went too far. And so he banned him. Now, my understanding as of this moment, at least according to Kanye West, because he showed the screenshot, is that he's not really fully banned, permanently banned. It's a 12-hour suspension or something like that. And I believe the tweet that got him temporarily banned is it was like the Jewish star with the swastika inside of it. And he was talking about like peace and love for everybody, and he was showing that. And, he kept saying just questionable things, super suspect Nazi-ish things.
Right. Not really questionable.
Yeah. So anyway, Elon banned him, or at least temporarily suspended him, and did you see some of their DMs back and forth?
Yeah, was it Kanye that shared those, or Elon that shared those?
I don't know if it was Kanye or Elon or whatever.
Anyway, somebody shared the text message exchange where Elon basically said, like,
you went too far.
Look, I tried, you went too far, this is not love. And he had the symbol you were talking about, that's like the Jewish star with the Nazi swastika inside of it.
And eventually Kanye responds again with like, who are you to judge? It's like, he's the dude who just spent $44 billion to buy Twitter. That's who he is to judge. He's like the owner of Twitter. What do you mean? Who is he to judge? It's just such a weird thing to say. And then I think they like started reciting Bible verses back and forth. And then the other thing is, Kanye trolled Elon by responding to Elon or tweeting at Elon that very embarrassing picture of him with his shirt off.
Right.
He's getting hosed down and he's on a boat and he looks like a fucking whale. Like,
yeah.
He just looks giant.
Yeah.
And Kanye was like, this is fine. You could post this. And he said, if anything, I should thank you because this inspired me to lose some weight, bro. So no big deal, bro. And then I think I saw another tweet where Kanye put the Ghislaine Maxwell with Elon picture up.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't even see that.
Super duper trolling him. So, and then again...
I'm sure none of those things helped his case, but yeah, I mean, Elon had all the ammunition he needed with the Nazi symbology in there.
Okay, so now, here's my question for you, because I really think this is actually a complex question. It's not complex as to what's going on with Kanye. Severe untreated bipolar disorder, he's a Nazi, he's deeply anti-Semitic. By the way, the bipolar disorder doesn't excuse the Nazism, it's just, when you're severely bipolar and it's untreated, one of the symptoms is extreme paranoia, and so as part of that paranoia, he connected the dots on a giant Jewish cabal conspiracy theory, right? So it's not questionable what's going on or complex what's going on with Kanye. It's actually relatively straightforward. But the complex question comes, okay, there was a very famous Supreme Court case where the ACLU defended Nazis peacefully marching through Skokie, Illinois, which was a very Jewish town. And the Supreme Court effectively said, hey man, we might not like this, but this actually is free speech. As long as it remains peaceful, you're allowed to do that. So the thing that Elon nominally banned Kanye for was, this is a direct threat of violence, effectively. That's what he said. Now, even though anybody of sound mind will condemn Kanye and what he said, and he did go masked off full Nazi, I mean, he actually didn't do any direct threats of violence, right? So then the question becomes, is it ban-worthy, or should it really be ban-worthy for just being like a kind of a card-carrying Nazi and waving the flag, you know what I'm saying? Because that is what this is, right?
Right.
Now, usually the alt-right types are smart enough to do their little beat around the bush, do their little tap
numbers
dance,
or whatever,
use their dog whistles, they're smart enough to sort of go right up to the line and then reel it in. Yeah. But this is Kanye in the midst of deep mental illness, not even being able to do that. He just is like, I love Hitler, So the question is that actually ban-worthy? Should that be permanently ban-worthy? What do you think about that?
I mean, well, first of all, we should say it looks like it's not a permanent ban. Yeah, it's 12-hour
12-hour, it looks like right now.
I mean, if you're running a platform based on the First Amendment and the, adjudicated history of what counts as free speech and what is over the line in terms of things like direct threats of violence, no, I don't think he should be banned. The problem, I mean, number one, like, that is the standard that I support in terms of how these platforms should be run. Obviously, I think it's ridiculous that any one person, whether it's Elon Musk or anyone else, should have the sole decision-making authority to decide who can speak and who cannot speak. But the other thing that I have an issue with, and actually this is the thing that European regulators have an issue with Elon and Twitter, is just the capriciousness of it. Like, it's all decided on this like one-off case-by-case basis. So there's no uniform standard whatsoever. So, you know, obviously, like I said, I think having the First Amendment free speech standard is the right way to go. But it would also be fine if you just had a consistent terms of service standard that had transparency behind it, that you could defend, that there was a you know, public involvement and public process for adjudicating when it was, you know, borderline questions. But my biggest issue with all of this is that it's just completely at the whims of Elon Musk and whatever the hell he feels like right now. Now, that's not really any different from how it was under Jack or under previous leadership. They just had more of a facade of like rules in terms of service, but they were also sort of going case by case and seat of their pants as well, and giving differential treatment to people who were celebrities or otherwise prominent. But that's my biggest issue with this, is how each case seems to be made on the fly, case by case. Let me do a Twitter poll. Let me just decide to unban everyone. Now let me ban some left-wing accounts because somebody told me I should. That's, to me, the biggest issue.
Yeah, to me, the whole question in this instance comes down to spirit of the law versus letter of the law type thing.
Yeah.
Because I actually don't think, in a very technical sense, the letter of the law that, you know, what he was tweeting and what he said was ban-worthy. I think it's deplorable. I think it's bigoted. I think it's anti-Semitic. I think it's just flat out Nazi praise and Hitler love.
Yes.
Like, but technically, it's actually not ban-worthy. But in terms of the spirit of the law, I mean, people can make the argument, and I don't think it's an unreasonable argument. It's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not an unreasonable argument, that praising Nazis in the overt way that he did is sort of inherently violent in a sense. Because it's kind of like saying, you know, like Kanye was like, oh, I love Jews. There's a lot to love about Jews, but there's also a lot to love about Nazis. And that's kind of like saying, you know, I love Jews. There's a lot to love about Jews, but there's also a lot to love about Al-Qaeda, right? Because it's like the group by its very nature is violent by definition. So praise of it is inherent praise of violence. Now, again, I know that's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not an unreasonable argument, right?
Yeah, but it does get you into like difficult terrain, because then it's like,
well, that's
okay,
the problem, the slippery slope argument.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, okay, so now if you praise
communism
Antifa
or communism, does that mean
exactly.
you're actually excusing what Stalin did, and so you're genocidal?
Is that an inherently violent or authoritarian ideology? And so now are you feeding into a like inherently violent ideology? So I think that gets you in very tricky territory, because then you're debate. Okay, is Antifa inherently violent? Can you express any sort of support for them? Even
and by the way, he has been banning Antifa accounts.
Right.
Elon has been banning Antifa accounts, and like you said, one of the things that's been going on is Elon's constantly in contact with these right-wing Twitter figures, and they'll just say like, this group or this Twitter account, they're pedophiles, they're groomers, and then they'll ban them.
And Elon will be like, oh, thanks for letting me know.
There's no evidence for that, and you're just doing, you know, authoritarian free speech crackdown just now in the other direction. You're going against the left.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, even the decision to keep Alex Jones banned when everybody else got unbanned, what did you think of that?
Well, his reasoning was because I had a kid that died. By the way, he lied about the specifics of that. He said my kid died in my arms, and his ex-wife chimed in and was like, no, bitch, the kid was in my arms. So he was lying even about that, right? But the fact that he had a kid who died, he's like, I'm not going to accept anybody who tries to get fame and wealth off of a tragedy like that at the expense of these poor families or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the standard that he himself espouses, yes, he's violating the standard that he espouses.
Right. And even that, like, I mean, obviously, I totally understand where he's coming from. I think what Alex Jones did with the Sandy Hook families is absolutely disgusting, abhorrent. Like, I think actually that is a more defensible ban than Kanye's. But again, it's just coming down to like his personal whims of what his experience was and what particular like violations really bother him. And so to me, that's the core of the issue, is just having like one random dude decide what the rules are and apply them on this incredibly inconsistent basis.
But this will ironically be the only time that Elon doesn't get shit from mainstream media. Because they're going to be like, oh, you obviously did the right thing here.
With Kanye.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, this will be, because he gets shit for everything he does, and I think rightfully so. He's been incredibly erratic and ridiculous throughout this whole process. But now will be the only time where people are like, oh, thankfully, Elon Musk. If anything, they're going to say you shouldn't have done the temporary suspension. You should have done a permanent ban. That's what a lot of people are going to say.
There are parts of the Elon Twitter situation that have been sort of useful in terms of really revealing how all of these platforms work, the dangers of putting the power of censorship in the hands of one person or a small group of unaccountable elites. Like, in that way, you know, it's been very revealing, because like I said, it does appear to, you know, be more capricious and more just based on his whims, but it's not really any different from how any of these social media platforms operate. It's just more unmasked, it's more brazen. It's sort of like the difference between like Trump corruption and other presidential corruption. Like, Trump just ripped the mask off. He's totally brazen, totally unrepentant out there, you know, with it. It's just all hanging out for people to see. And I sort of feel like that with the Elon Musk Twitter reign is just all out there in the open now, how this actually operates and the problems with it.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Kanye going full Nazi is going to lead to more people going full Nazi? Or do you think he's destroying himself, that's clear, and it's not going to create a single new Nazi? What's your take on that?
I kind of think it is going to create some more people who were already Nazi-ish, were Nazi adjacent, feeling like they have permission structure to go all the way in now.
But do you think it's going to be sort of a negligible?
I think it'll be fringe. I don't think it'll be widespread.
What are we talking? I mean, we looked at change, a 1%. Yeah, I was going to make that point. So a new poll came out. Kanye has a 16% approval rating, which, to put that in perspective, that is lower than George W. Bush's approval rating at his least popular time, which was 25%. And this is a guy who waged illegal wars and crashed the global economy. And so, I mean, I think my instinct is to say the opposite, really, that I think Kanye is sort of destroying himself, destroying his career, and if he's creating any new Nazis, you know, we're talking about less than a percentage point, effectively.
Yeah, I think people like Nick Fuentes are more dangerous. I mean, now Nick Fuentes is just like tied into the Kanye, I love Hitler, clown chasing or whatever. But, you know, I think people who are able to like keep it under wraps 10% and have their plausible deniability are probably more dangerous in that regard. Whereas, I mean, Kanye is just like, he's in his like gimp mask with this weird net and whatever. But the fact that he is a prominent celebrity who's been looked up to as a genius by so many people for so long does make me feel like if you're someone who was already flirting with this ideology, it would make you feel like you can go all the way.
But in a weird way, then, this actually hurts the cause of Nazism and far-right beliefs, because if all the people who do the tap dance and the beating around the bush and the dog whistles, they drop that and they start saying what they really believe,
revealed,
then that's going to make fewer people go that direction, because there are plenty of people who were not really Nazis who were like intrigued by the trolling of like Milo back in his heyday and stuff. And then now it's like, no, if you actually believe the Nazi shit, I'm not with that. And there's been a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives came out and basically said to Kanye, like, I was with you until the praising Hitler shit, which is kind of like them saying, you crossed the one line that none of us are okay with you crossing.
Right. You know you made it totally overt, where we could no longer do the tap dance of like, oh no, he's just saying whatever. I mean, you know, there's a long list of very embarrassing comments from people who were Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, who were trying to make it like, oh no, he's not racist.
Yeah, Kanye's
he's not crazy. Right, exactly. And it's like, just look at what he's literally saying, and it's very obvious and very clear. The other thing that I think you make a good point about, it would be useful if, like, you know, the Nick Fuentes, all those people are just like totally mask off, like, I love Hitler, and, you know, the public can see, oh, I want nothing to do with this hateful ideology. But the other part that I was worried about is when he was sitting there next to Alex Jones, right? If you just watch that interaction, you'd be like, oh, this Alex Jones guy seems a lot more reasonable than this one.
He was so uncomfortable. He was like, I'd have to disagree with that.
Right.
Anyway, moving on.
Right. Or, I mean, if you just watch... I mean, Alex said some crazy shit, too.
He
was started
did you
going
know the British created Hitler? Did
right.
you know that?
He was trying to do his normal thing, but sitting next to Kanye, he looks in relationship to him like a much more reasonable person. So that was the part of it that I actually sort of worried about, is like, by Kanye pushing the fringe of the fringe and making it so public, do you make characters like Marjorie Taylor Greene or like Alex Jones or whatever seem like the reasonable part of the Republican Party?
That's possible. So look, that's a competing narrative to the one I just laid out, which is the now
you just
you'll
reveal
make them
them all.
go mask off, and then people will run away from them. I mean,
Yeah.
That's kind of, but that's possible that what you're saying happens. It's possible that what I'm saying happens. I mean,
Or
only
some
time
of
will
both,
tell.
to be honest with you, yeah.
But I just want to wrap it up by telling everybody this. Go watch the new video on Kanye West that was just dropped by a channel called Timba on Toast, Timbah on Toast. And what he does is it does a very detailed breakdown of how Kanye has severe, untreated bipolar disorder. He's exhibiting every single symptom of mania, which is the up part of the bipolar disorder. And you'll see there's a direct comparison with people who we know have bipolar disorder, the things they say, the things Kanye says,
Yeah.
his inability to continue with a coherent train of thought. He cuts himself off. It's very, it's very fragmented in how he speaks. He also has that rapid fire thing where he can't shut up even if he wanted to.
Yeah.
He's also incredibly paranoid. He has the delusions of grandeur. He has these idiotic ideas that he thinks sound brilliant in the moment. So he breaks it all down in a wonderful video. So everybody definitely go check that out, because I thought that video was...
Yeah, I mean,
good.
that's the backdrop of all of this. And it really is disgusting. Like, stop. It's not like, oh, we need to deplatform Kanye or whatever. But, like, at this point, stop just elevating someone who clearly has untreated mental illness. Like, what do you think you're going to get out of this interview ultimately? So that is the backdrop for all of this. Is this guy clearly thinks he's a genius. He thinks he's super special. He thinks he's, like, changing the world. And in reality, you're just a textbook case of untreated mental illness, and you need to go get medicated.
The clown show is going to march on, though. People cannot look away. It's like saying, hey, don't play that show anymore of, cars crashing. It's like, well, the ratings on the car crash show, people seem to like it, so they're going to keep fucking doing it.
Yeah.
And the final point I'll make is, even though I am, I'm generally way more on the side of free speech, I don't think the people who disagree with me are as unreasonable as I thought they once were. Because I think it is true that once you take those guardrails off, and we saw, what was that documentary we saw? It was about QAnon. The guy who ran 4chan or like created 4chan.
8chan, right?
8chan, my bad. He was like responsible for the limited content moderation that they do on that platform. And he said, having to moderate that platform totally changed my views. I was a hardcore free speech warrior, free speech absolutist kind of guy. And then when I'm moderating this website, which is all about free speech, the amount of fucking child porn that you see, the amount of outright Hitler praise and grotesque criminal pictures and things people say and do, he said, that absolutely rattled my beliefs to my core, and I effectively changed it. And so I'll say, I don't think the people are as unreasonable as I once thought they were when they go, hey, just so you know, once the guardrails come off, it's not going to look like you think it's going to look. I think now, effectively, the trade-off is you can have this sort of maximum freedom, or as much as humanly possible, but the downside of that quote-unquote maximum freedom is fucking anarchy and chaos and negative things. It's not like, oh, if you have, universal free speech everywhere, we get as close as we can to that ideal, that all of a sudden, everything will be utopian, or the best ideas will win, right? Like, you have the battle in the marketplace of ideas and the best ideas. Actually, no, what happens is, like what happened with Gab, it became full Nazi central when they took the guardrails off. So I just wanted to make that point, because I haven't done my due diligence in at least straw manning the opposition on that point of like, well, what are these people really saying? No, I see their argument. I see where they're coming from, even though I'm still of the perspective that we should treat Twitter like a public utility, expand First Amendment protections, and have a clear, transparent system for if and when people break the law or do things that should be banned.
Right, because the First Amendment is not anything goes. I mean, 8chan really was like literally anything goes. But I think your point is well taken.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, guys, we love you. We'll talk to you.